Hignett corner, beyond Bent. Janssen! And Blackburn Rovers are 18 minutes away from a Premiership return.
As far as Stewart, just outside the penalty area, clips it central for David Dunn. David Dunn equalises! It just had to be. Dax corner and it goes, glance towards goal, and Rovers have taken the lead. And Charlie Mulgrew has scored his 14th of the season. It may well be the goal that sends Rovers back into the Championship.
Good evening, Rovers fans, and welcome to the post-match review for Huddersfield. I'm Jonathan Secker, and tonight I'll be your host, hopefully substituting in ably for Ryan Hildred, who can't join us today. It's his son's birthday yesterday, so many happy returns to his little man. And on a day where Rovers put in a 5-star performance to thrash Huddersfield 5-2 in the Ewood Park sunshine. You can see I've got Andy and Ollie with me, and we'll be talking to them shortly to dissect the game. But first, before we move on, just a quick message from our sponsor.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 𝒑𝒆𝒔 𝑪𝒉𝒂𝒕. They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.
I really should unmute first, and I shall start talking. So first of all, before we move on, just a congratulations to Watford from a Championship perspective for securing promotion back to the Premier League. Well deserved on the run they've been on since they brought in the new manager. So today, 24th of April, and sentences that I never thought I'd be saying at this time of the season about Blackburn Rovers. One, today with that win, we're now mathematically safe from relegation. 2, it's the first time that we've won on a Saturday since the 6th of March. And 3, it's the second time that we've hit 5 goals this season in the Ewood Park sunshine. So let's go to the guests. So I'll go to Ollie first. Welcome, Ollie. Do you want to just give us a quick overview of thoughts on the game today?
Yeah, it's been a few games since I've done one of these. Very nice to be on when we scored 5 goals. I think I'll echo, obviously thrilled, sun shining, pitch looked great. We played well. Huddersfield were absolutely awful, so we didn't have a lot to beat. But I'd probably temper the positivity with there are still... I don't think we've learned anything about us as a team today. I don't want to be negative from the off. When teams have come home or away earlier this season, when teams are naive and make mistakes and are sloppy at the back and are too open, we've punished teams very easily and scored lots of goals. This was Coventry 4-0, Wickham 5-0, Derby 4-0. This was a carbon copy of those types of games. And as poor as Huddersfield were, they also had, I'm not sure where that goalkeeper came from, but I'm not sure he's a Championship goalkeeper. I think they may have got him from Sunday League. I'm not sure. He didn't inspire a lot of confidence either. But I'm not going to bemoan scoring 5 goals and winning very comfortably, putting to bed any ideas we'd get involved in. A lot of teams below us have lost today. So yeah, we can kind of put that to bed and we're mathematically safe. So but yeah, we attacking wise, very potent. Really pleased to see Armstrong hat-trick. Fine, great. We know he can score lots of goals. Probably more. If Armstrong doesn't score a hat-trick, Brereton is man of the match for me. Don't know why he starts more games, but yeah. If he hadn't scored today, you'd be bemoaning. He should have had a hat-trick. He 2 wretched misses, but took his goal very well. Set up, I think, did he set up Armstrong's second or Gallagher's? I can't remember which one. yeah, Gallagher good as well. Got in on the goals, helped by the goalkeeper. Rothwell, if you look at the goals that we didn't score, the goals we did score, you know, Rothwell's kind of pivotal in everything we were doing. And I thought Travis was very good as well. On the flip side, defensively, we weren't brilliant. We let in 2 really poor goals. We've won 5-2, but really it should have been 6 or 7-0. If you're being, it sounds ridiculous to say it, but it, you know, Huddersfield were that bad that it, you know, defensive frailties have let us down a lot this season, and Huddersfield did not warrant scoring 2 goals today. But you know, a couple of Bell should have done better. That's nothing new, and they score their first to make a dominant first half look a little bit squeaky. But then we ran out comfortable winners in the second again. Can't think who was it. I think Bennett might have been on the pitch by then, and Bennett and Lenihan just don't do enough to close down and block the shot. But yeah, no, I'm not don't want to be too negative, but I've certainly, in the watch along and seen the comments tonight, I think everyone is very pleased. But you know, plenty of people sort of saying there are still some buts. You know, this isn't, oh brilliant, we're going to be amazing next season. This is, yeah, in isolation we thrashed a really, really, really poor side. But we knew we were capable of doing that already. That was my slightly long thoughts on the game so far. I'll hand over to Andy.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ollie. Before we come to Andy, we'll just jump into a couple of viewer comments. Yeah, I was watching the game myself thinking, oh, we're not going to be short of stuff to discuss tonight. So let's just see what some of the comments we've had so far. So we've got Alexander Haben, 5-star performance. Barclay coach raises a similar point to what you've mentioned there, Ollie, about still questions to ask. Michael very nicely welcomes me back. Pleasure to be here, Michael. Barfly again, another comment about play the players that are contracted next season. So that's something that we will come on to discuss in a bit later. Chris G, relief, yep, something that we're not used to on a Saturday at the moment. And then another point, sort of Duncan, which backs up what we said earlier, why we're not trying new players for next season. So, yeah, interesting point that we'll come on to in due course. So, yeah, I'll pass over to you, Andy, if you want to give us your thoughts synopsis from today.
Sorry, unmuted. Yeah, I mean, sort of like, pretty much like Ollie said, really. If you take the game in isolation, sun shining, 5 goals, some free-flowing football, fantastic day. It's almost like, and you don't want to be negative, but one swallow doesn't make a summer. And it's almost like if we were doing really well and we'd slipped to a bad defeat, we're not all of a sudden a bad team. So just because we've put away a poor team doesn't also, it doesn't make us a good team all of a sudden. But I'd want to focus more on the positives, because I think we need to be honest with you, just because of the run we've had, the summer we're going into. Huddersfield poor. The keeper was terrible. That's not going to instill any sort of confidence in the back four in front of them. I thought the front three for Rovers today sort of played well, interchanged well. There was a lot of passing and moving, and they were all getting in their goal contributions. If they were goaling, if they were scoring, or if they were sort of assisting with the goals. But Rothwell was very, very unselfish for his goal, and he could have probably taken it on and maybe chipped the keeper, put it past him. To square it for Armstrong shows that although we've not been playing well, still like a team spirit and a team ethic there. So that's encouraging. Yeah, it was a good win. You know, it's put us clear, it's put us in a comfortable mid-table position. In terms of the starting 11, in terms of the changes, you wonder whether Downing and Johnson, like their races run now, not even in the squad. I'm sure we'll get on to sort of like who's staying, who's going later on.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Andy. That is a very pertinent point. And Johnson and Downing, a good example of what you mentioned, and especially when you see people out of contract like Evans and Bell starting again. Moving on to the game then, and we'll focus a bit more on some specific performances. Ollie, I'm going to come to you with a comment from Alexander, where he mentions, glad to see Gallagher and Brereton working well together as a partnership. Is this the way forward? So let's get your views on that, if that's okay.
Yeah, it is I think, I mentioned it already that I think we all sit here thinking we may not have Adam Armstrong next season. That's a very real possibility. So, we do need a solution to the fact that he scored. Is that 25 now in all competitions for the season so far? With that hat trick today, that's a lot. I'm never quite sure whether I necessarily see Gallagher and Brereton as a partnership, because that probably becomes a 4-4-2, and that's not something I think we're going to see. But I think they're both going to be with us next season unless something bizarre happens in the summer transfer wise. I think Gallagher's now, despite all of, I don't think in the comments and us on the panels, I don't think any of us speak particularly glowingly of Gallagher, but I think he's about to touch double figures. I think if he scores again this season, is he on 9 now? Which actually, for somebody that we've probably all, most of us have all been bemoaning to some degree. I actually think on the 1875 podcast, I'm pretty sure early in the season I said to Tom and Alex, I think one of Gallagher or Brereton will hit double figures this season, and they need to. And hopefully Gallagher can, we've got a couple more games. If he could just get himself sort of over 10 goals, I don't know, it sort of feels significant in a sense that to have strikers in the squad, that if we don't have Adam Armstrong, we have a massive void to fill. I would always be playing Brereton. I think a lot of us have said that all season. How he fits into a world without Adam Armstrong, or whether he will spend his career here as a wide left or a wide right, I'm not sure. I'm not sure how they work together. I think they work together in a 3, as we saw today, whether it's, we've seen them with Dolan in the middle, we've seen them with Armstrong in the middle. I don't know, really. There's something, when their goals came along, they both took them very well. But Brereton's 2 misses are the kind of things that, when we're in games with much finer margins than we had today, like the 2 chances Brereton misses have to go in. Like, they have to go in. If you're playing a Brentford or a Watford or a Norwich or someone, and we are mixing up in the top 6, those those defining moments in a match have to go in. And that's the thing that's always worried me with both of them, is neither yet looks like that kind of natural goal scorer. Like, I know Armstrong, he scored a hat trick, but he also missed a very good chance. I think when Bell made a very good run and a very good cross through to him, it was sort of a bit of an uncharacteristic fluff, like a total fluff. But we've spent a season generally with a striker that, if we get a very good chance, he does score. And it bothers me that Gallagher and Brereton will always miss some very good chances before they score. But again, I've been very negative already when we won 5-2. So I want to be. It's Gallagher hopefully hits double figures for the season, which actually, given that both of them seem to exchange starting and being sub to a degree this season, yeah, I think for me, one of them needs to cement their place in the centrally. That's what needs to happen, and whether that then whether that kind of gives them the opportunity to be right. I'm the focal point of this attack, and my primary role is people to play off me or to get myself in and around the penalty spot and score goals. Because at the moment they are being asked to do more than just score goals, and yet both of them have still, I think what their combined goal tally is, whatever it is, high teens this season. It's not terrible, but it's eventually one of them has to become a central focal striker. I think they've both got both of them have the attributes to be somewhat effective there. For some reason, I still think Brereton's the one that I would kind of back as, if let's say next season there's no Armstrong and we're playing 4-3-3, I'd have players either side of Brereton and just say, look, give him the first 10 games and like how what can he do for 10 games centrally. But no, they both scored today. Brereton got an assist. I'm not going to complain. But yeah, that's probably, I think, where we need to go. You need to put one of them in the middle and see how they get on. But they need. This happened all of last season, and it's happened a bit this season to a lesser degree. That kind of Mowbray. Why has Brereton started so few games again for sort of a period? Like, I don't understand. There sort of seems to be either one sort of in favour or one isn't, or occasionally we've seen a few games where they both start either side of Dolan or Armstrong, but generally it's been Elliott with one of them. And it's, I don't know. He just needs to sort of say to one of them, right, you're my guy, and I'm going to I'll see how you get on. But yeah, that's probably where I'm kind of at with them, really.
Yeah, it's an interesting discussion, and we've had a few comments with friend, which I'll jump to in a minute. Just to sort of clarify on the stats, because I was having a look as you was talking, Ollie. That's now 8 goals for Gallagher this season, so he's getting close to double figures, which I think is what we'd said at a bare minimum, really, for one of our strikers. Brereton's now up to 6, which I know is not fantastic, but considering the last 2 seasons he did just get 1 goal, it is signs of improvement. I'm just going to jump into a few viewer comments there. So Duncan has picked up on Gallagher and Brereton up front with Butterworth behind. Quite interesting, Butterworth, because I think a lot of us probably expected to see him feature today, especially after not playing for the under-23s last night. Michael Sandbach says that he feels that Gallagher can be an effective centre forward at championship level, but again, not sure whether Brereton's better out wide or up front. Michael Pearson, he's come in. He says we can't rely on them for their goal scoring, but he played Brereton central out of the 2. Simon Child has says Brereton has the potential to be a 1 out of 4 or 1 out of 5 scorer at best. Very much Andy Cole sort of stats there, Simon. He does add a lot more to the team, I think, and we've seen that this year with his ability to draw fouls and actually drive us forward, sort of on the transition. And then last comment on this, Chris G has gone 4-2-3-1 with Brereton in the DAC role and Gallagher the 1. So some interesting views on that. And I had planned to bring Armstrong into the equation, and I'm going to do that now and pose you a question, Andy. All the conversations we've had around Armstrong recently have been him not being a Rovers player next year. He's got 24 goals this season, 3rd top scorer in the championship. It's the first Rovers player since Chris Sutton to get more than 1 hat-trick in a league season. His 24 goals this season are the most that we've had from a striker since Rhodes in 13-14, and I think he got 25, so Armstrong could potentially beat that. Playing a sort of slightly different angle on this, Andy. do we need to sell him? How much of a risk is it we sell him with how much goals he actually brings to the team? Can you see him still at Rovers next season? And again, I appreciate viewers' comments on this as well, because yeah, it's such a massive player for us, and his goals are sort of like, well, he's 25, so he's got like 17 more than the next person with Gallagher in our team. So let us know what you think, Andy.
Sorry about that. It just went a bit blocky then. So yeah, so the whole Armstrong situation, it's turned into a fantastic goal scorer. When we got him at first and he was playing sort of outright, I liked him as a player. He was tricky, pulled out the fullback, he committed the fullbacks, he would draw fouls. My biggest question mark over him initially was his finishing product. There was no product. You'd either be hitting the fullback, overhitting the cross, the ball be going out of play, etc., etc. Since he's moved, it's almost like the Dak injury has been his making. Talk about like Dak injury the first time when he had to go centre forward, and he's just flourished into this fantastic goal scorer that is probably going to be now too good for us, and we're going to lose. How you replace his goals, I genuinely don't know. I genuinely don't know, to be honest with you. I mean, Gallagher and Brereton they're not the same level as Armstrong, but they can be good in the position that they're in. So I've never been a big fan of Brereton, I'll be honest with you. When we signed him on the loan period, it was a bit of an iffy one for me, because based on his appearances in that first half of the season, why did we pay £6 million for him? It was almost like it was a pre-done deal. And gradually over time, he's getting better and better. But I don't think he's the kind of lad who would have the confidence to play through the middle on his own and it not be coming off for him. You can imagine if Armstrong misses a couple of chances, just walks off a duck's back, picks himself up, goes again, takes another chance. Whereas with someone like Brereton, you could possibly imagine him shrinking into himself a little bit, not wanting the ball and becoming a bit anonymous. Gallagher's got, for me, he's got the attributes of being a target man, a good all-five forward in terms of tall, relatively quick, should be strong for the size of him. But again, I mean, if you could combine Brereton, the best bits of Brereton and the best bits of Gallagher, you're probably going to be getting somewhere near what we would need for a centre forward to play in a 4-3-3. Next season, I'd probably go with Brereton, depending who the manager is, depending on how the manager wants to play. But let's say it's going to be Mowbray, and he persists with this 4-3-3. Then he probably needs to put his arm around Brereton and say, look, we're going to give you 10 or 15 games. We're going to put supportive players around you. We're going to play Rothwell out left. We're going to play Gallagher right. We're going to have a more supportive midfield three in terms of not chipping in with goals, but sort of like supporting the attack. Sometimes the gap between the attack and the midfield can be massive, and therefore they're not getting the ball, so they can't be effective. So I'd personally go with Brereton, but he needs game time. He needs a run of games. And my only fear is that Mowbray's still the manager and the fans are back in the ground, given everything that's gone on this season. You might see a similar to this season in terms of chopping and changing, almost Gallagher being up front, Brereton being up front, maybe even someone like Butterworth, or I can't, his name's escaped me, the lad in the 23s that we signed from Scotland this year. I can't think of his name now, who was doing well. So I can imagine a few different players playing up front, but I don't think that's going to be helpful to any of those players. I think you need to say to one person, you're my man, you play up front, and let's see how you go.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. It's a real interesting one, and I'm glad I posed the question, because we've got some really good comments come in. A couple of comments around the fact that Armstrong isn't going into the last year of his contract. We can't afford not to sell. I think someone else had picked it leap year man as well. It's a difficult situation, but financially, do we need it to rebuild? Duncan poses a good question about how Armstrong actually fared. Quite interestingly, from my perspective, if we do persist with the 4-3-3 formation, I've always been more of a fan of playing that more with a focal point, someone like how Brentford play with an Ivan Toney or along those lines. Alexander raises a great point there. We will need another goal scorer. I don't think we've got enough goals in the squad at the moment. But equally, Michael still agree with him here that we need to sort of spread the goals around the pitch and cut out the goals conceded. Goals conceded is an interesting one because I think year on year we have conceded less, but equally the nature of our goals, like today, Huddersfield had 1 shot on target and scored 2 goals. When we played Luton, I know that was last season, they'd scored 2 goals from no shots, etc. So, but yeah, there's lots to be done, and we need to look at. We've had so many frustrating games where we've lost 1-0, actually turn those into 1-0 wins. So, Ollie, I'm going to come back to you with probably one more question on the game then. Actually, taking everything into consideration, how good was we today? How good was it from an attacking perspective, and how good was it to watch? And did actually going ahead make a difference?
Yeah, I think so. You know, we've actually can't remember I think Warren was saying it on the iFollow commentary. It's been quite a while since we've scored 2 goals been 2-0 up in the first half of a game. You seem to have got a lot of the stats to hand, Jonathan, so I'll leave that one with you. Yeah, I think there is a big thing to be said, you know, since the end of January, our ability to lose games 1-0 and we've seen in quite a few games the sort of the reaction of the opposition and even the dugout, you know, their manager, their coaching staff. If teams have got their noses in front against us, doesn't matter. It seems irrelevant where they are in the table, that we really wilt across the rest of the game, and just to get ourselves in front, and it, you know, that confidence that you see in the attack, you know, that front 4 today at their best, where, you know, we've seen a few different iterations of it. Sometimes it's, you know, a lot of earlier in the season it was Elliott instead of Gallagher with Brereton, Armstrong and Rothwell, and today it was Gallagher. When they find their rhythm and, you know, their tails are up and they're very, very, you know, they've got speed, there's technical ability, there's very, very clinical finishing with Armstrong, there's power with Brereton and Gallagher. You know, Rothwell, you know, I'm a huge fan of Joe Rothwell. The way he just, yeah, his ability to link the kind of midfield and attack and glide across large areas of the pitch. And, you know, he was, Andy, spot on. He was very unselfish today in his use of the ball. But he just he just creates a lot, whether we score or not. You know, he took the corner for the first goal. I think, you know, he actually should have had a couple more assists from, you know, people not taking the chances he'd kind of made for them. But he's always seems to be at the crux of, you know, the move that leads to, you know, he's very instrumental. But I always have that nagging, as I said very early on, that nagging itch of Huddersfield allowed us to do that today. We've seen a very similar system shut down so much this season by the bottom sides and the top sides. And when teams, you know, when teams kind of aren't that open and aren't that kind of sloppy and have a goalkeeper that is not having a very good day, we have struggled a bit to unlock it. Well, struggled a lot to unlock it. It sort of seems hard to put your finger on. I haven't seen kind of Mowbray's post-match comments, but I'm kind of interested to see how he's kind of spoken about it as a performance, because I think it's very difficult to move away from the fact, like exactly as Andy said, that, you know, just because we beat a poor side today doesn't mean we're a great side again. And it really doesn't, because today isn't what matters. Really, it's in fact, like, I'm never going to bemoan scoring 5 at home and thrashing someone. It's great, but that's not. We're not going to remember this season because we beat rubbish Huddersfield at home towards the end of the season. We're going to remember it for, you know, lots of, you know, losing 1-0s and, you know, a total inability to create chances and score goals in a very long run, a very long barren run. What's very difficult to put your finger on is, why were we so bad midweek versus today? Those are the things after Tuesday, Mowbray sort of talked about, oh, you know, we were at Sheffield Wednesday, you know, we were a yard off for it, we were lacking intensity, we were a jaded side. And no, not today. You know, it's sort of, it's different. Like, it's sort of, in some ways, it's sort of almost frustrating as a fan to sort of go, I don't know why couldn't there have been elements of today in some of these games where we've lost 1-0, you know, at Wycombe, away at Sheffield Wednesday the other day. Yeah, it's just a bit Jekyll and Hyde sometimes, but I'm not gonna bemoan the fact that when we find our rhythm in attack this season, we've been devastating, and that's, you know, it is something to build on and look to next season. And whatever squad we have, we're going to have a lot of the components that make up that transition of midfield into attack. And I don't think the system is going to change. You know, we are 4-3-3. It's what the under-23s play. You know, that's kind of the hierarchy and structure in the club. This is how we play as a football team, and when it works well, it's fantastic. And it's the big question mark this season is, when teams have put things in place and close up the spaces and make life difficult for us, how do we make this system work? And sort of frustratingly, today hasn't answered that question. But it's, you know, we know they're good players. When they get it right, it's very, very good. And it's, whether it's a confidence thing, let's see what the last 2 games bring, and if we can, you know, win the next 2 and keep scoring goals, then fantastic. It will kind of end the season on a positive note. But it's, you know, we somehow need to translate some of what happened today into those tighter games, and whether what that missing something is, I don't know. Sometimes we've seen it, sometimes we do see it in moments, but yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. Some interesting points there, and just to pick up on a couple myself, I think, as you said, the comparison to Tuesday is so frustrating that we had more shots today in the first 17 minutes and tested their keeper more than we did in 90 minutes at Hillsborough. And as you say, the season's not going to be remembered for today, though I still recommend we enjoy it as much as we can and get some beer. But yeah, I'm going to look forward to now. So next sort of thing that I want to sort of focus on for the rest of the the live stream is around what we feel we want to see for the next couple of games. We'll talk a little bit about contracts, and then I will, because it'd be amiss of me not to just talk about the manager situation. So, Andy, I'm going to come to you in terms of the next two games: Rotherham away, Birmingham at home. What do you want to see in terms of performance, and probably more specifically personnel for the next couple of games?
Sorry, do it again. I think for the Rotherham game, what I'd like to see is a bit of steel in the performance. When I say that, I mean Wycombe are bottom and have gone. We lost there. Sheffield Wednesday were on a horrendous run. We lost there. So Rotherham are going to be fighting for their lives. They've lost 4 on the bounce. And what I don't want us to do is think, oh, that's fine, we're safe now. We'll change 4 or 5 players again. We go over there. Rotherham have got all to play for, and we get rolled over, which would be a record of 3 away games against relegated teams and losing them all. And that is symptomatic of our season in terms of when it counts, when we're up against a team that wants it more than us or need it more than us, we don't seem to be at the races. Scored 5 today against a poor team. Scored 5 against Wycombe on the first day of the season, poor team. Scored 4 against Coventry away, they were down to 10 men. 4 against Preston away, they were down to 10 men. It's okay scoring hatfuls of goals, but it comes when it's an easy game. And it's sort of like the accusation that we're flat track bullies, if you're a follower of cricket, sort of springs to mind. We need to do it in games that count. So Rotherham away, I want to see. There's no reason other than injury why the starting 11 shouldn't be the starting 11 of today. At any other point of the season, people would say that team have deserved it, because there's no doubt when the substitutions were made today, it sort of disrupted the flow of the game in terms of there didn't seem to be the interchange between the front 3. So I just like to see the same starting 11 for Rotherham. I'd like to see a good, solid professional performance, a bit like the performance at Middlesbrough away, with the exception of the foot in the face from Branthwaite. So I'd like to see something like that. As for Birmingham at home, it's going to be a difficult one, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be the absolute dead rubber. Both teams, mid-table. Birmingham probably with the wind in the tails. They've won 3 and drawn 2 out of the last 5. We generally, on the last day, if we've nothing to play for, sort of turn into some sort of Harlem Globetrotters of football. I can remember, I think it was a 3-3 against Forest on the last day of the season. We just seem to go into sort of cruise mode, and the pressure's off, and play this free-flowing football. And we've got the place to play it. Rothwell he's like the testimonial type of player in terms of if you give him a yard of space, he's a fantastic player. He eats up the ground, skip past plays, 1-2s, fancy flicks. So, yeah, to answer the question, Rotherham, I want to see a bit of steel in the performance and not capitulate. And Birmingham, the last game in the season, it's been a disappointing season. Everyone accepts that. Let's just go out, try and get 6 points from the last 2 games, finish the season on a bit of relative high. And let's see what the summer brings.
Yeah, thanks, Andy. If we can take 6 points from the next 2 games, then that'll be absolutely amazing. Ollie, just going to come to you again to build on that, but focus a bit more on the personnel. So Andy's sort of said, yeah, looking at, based on what we got today, keep a winning side, keep the same side as last week. That would then include Bell and Evans, both out of contract in the summer. I'm ignoring the Rothwell and IMB situation, assuming that we're going to just trigger their year extensions. What do you think the future holds for, say, Bell and Evans? Also, Elliot Bennett as well, and Bradley Johnson, Stuart Down. Sorry, I'm chucking loads of names at you there. Do you think that the decisions have been made, and the fact that we didn't see Johnson and Downing today means that we won't see him again anymore in a Rovers shirt? And next week, would you keep with Bell and Evans if possibly they might not be here next season?
Yeah, very good questions. Actually, the only bit I disagree on with the, he probably will keep, side scores 5 and wins. I think you stick with that starting 11. I think Andy's right. I think it will be the same starting 11. What I felt was really nice today, even though we replaced Travis, was very nice to see Davenport back on the pitch. I think he was in a really good run of form, and I really like him, as I think he's actually going to bring quite a lot to the Rovers side. The only thing my only personal thing I'd change, but I doubt it will happen, is I'd probably drop Evans and put Davenport in place, because I think, and that would probably answer your Bradley Johnson element of the question. Really like Bradley Johnson. I think this season, when he's been fit and playing, I think the stats bear through that he's been very important to when we win football matches. And I'd probably note Simon Child's comment, which I think is spot on at 601, that I do think we've lacked a bit of steel at times. These games where we've sort of limped out losing, and Mowbray talks about us huffing and puffing and having the chances to have got something out of the game, whilst subjectively that is probably true. You need that grit and steel and fight. And Bradley Johnson is someone that brings that grit and steel and fight. Whether if he's having a poor game, he's still fighting. But I look at Davenport and Travis as probably a very integral element of a three-man midfield next season, and you'd probably throw Joe Rothwell into that. Does that become the 3 that, if everyone's fit, that's the 3 you're starting every week? Because I think Evans divides opinion, has a divided opinion for a very long time, because we've had him a very long time. Bell, we're not dripping in money. That's not a secret. Barry Douglas hasn't done enough for me, given his age, and if he wants another year or two, if he wants to leave Leeds and come and play for us for a year or two, defensively he's not been better than Bell, which is fairly damning. I think, does he offer a lot more quality on the ball? Yes. Have we utilised his ability from set pieces enough? No. Although we did score from a corner. I think Gallagher's headed goal the other day was should be the type of routine we should have seen a lot this season, and we've seen it very little. I think Bell, I've got high hopes for Pickering when we actually use him next season. But we signed Amari Bell as a League One left back who had a very good set of statistics and was sort of hot property in that division, and he's been okay. Bell's been okay for me. I'm not going to dig him out. Defensively, has his moments. I think with a run of games, when he gets his confidence going, I think he can be quite good going forward. I think he showed that today, and should have had an assist. I'd keep him around, because we kind of know him as a player and we know what he brings, whether that's, I know some people think he's quite a liability defensively, but I think a lot of our defence has been a liability this season. There is nothing to say Harry Pickering is going to be any better. They sort of come with a similar CV at different time. Pickering was, you're really good in League One. That doesn't mean you're really good in the Championship. I do think he probably is going to be quite good. But if Bell's happy to stick around within the squad, he's, I'd like to think he's probably a cheaper alternative than having Barry Douglas sat around the squad. Bennett, I've got a lot of time. I think he's one of those players that he's just a really good ambassador for the club. He's got versatility. He can play probably 3-4 positions in the side. He is not a poor footballer. He's okay. He's more than happy to spend most of the season on the bench. I don't mind Bennett sticking around, because I think he brings a sort of collectivity around the squad, and that, you know, I think and a little bit of experience, and that's not a bad thing with what is a relatively inexperienced squad. You know, there's something about, let's say you get rid of Bennett, Douglas, Downing and Johnson, you put the average age of the squad, I think that's good. You know, that's pretty much all of our 30-year-olds gone. And it's, you know, we do have a young squad at the best of times. So I think a little bit of experience and a wise head at times doesn't go amiss, even if it's someone that's happy just to be in the dressing room, on the bench. Not saying that he brings the kind of grit and steel and leadership we need, but it's, I don't mind having him around. And he loves being at the club. I can't say the same for the other players, because they're not as outspoken as he is. But I think it'll be interesting. I'd probably agree with you that I do think we've seen the last of Johnson and Downing. And actually, although it seemed like a very good thing to have re-signed Downing for this season, it sort of has ended up looking, you know, Downing has offered nothing this season for whatever outlay we've given him. Although I didn't disagree with it as a decision at the time. You know, there's no reason for him to stick around anymore. But yeah, I think, yeah, I'd keep Bell and probably keep Bell and Bennett, because I think they're kind of useful. I see Frank's just said tribal, which is a good question as well.
Yeah, thanks, Ollie. It's lots of questions and stuff to be pondered, and it's really interesting to say how much the club's done so far with that. Just going to bring up a few comments. Daniel's raised a very fair point that Bell's wages are probably not quite high, which may mean that we do see him staying around. Like you, Ollie, I'm really keen to see Pickering in a Rovers shirt, but at the same time, if we don't know, he may struggle. He may not acclimatise to the Championship as well as we wanted. So having a bit more of someone who knows the place, knows the team in Bell may help. Eugene picks up that he likes Benno, but we need some strong leadership in and around the squad, and he doesn't feel that he offers that. Michael Pearson feels that Benno's past it. Mark Duggan says we should keep Rothwell, JRC, Johnson, rest, let go, not consistent, try and get Tribal signed. And Michael Pearson again raises a very pertinent point about, for each player we replace, their replacements will cost more. And it's going to be a really, really interesting market this summer in terms of, I know we've got a lot of players out of contract, but equally a lot of other Championship teams do have as well. And there'll be a lot of free transfers out there. So it'll be quite interesting to see if it's a club market led by the finances or a player market led by individual wage. Right, I'm going to just move on for the final couple of questions for you both and focus a bit more on the management situation, which probably has changed quite a bit in the last 24 or 36 hours from what we're hearing from various media outlets. And it does look like that Mowbray will continue to be manager next season. He's made comments in the press about the work he's doing in terms of knowing which players are staying, which players are going. He spoke a lot about next season. I believe it was on BBC Lancashire, Radio Lancashire last night, that Alan Nixon was on with Andy Bays and said that he felt that Mowbray was going to stay, and there's been lots of conversations about new players already. That viewpoint was backed up by Alan Myers, who obviously used to work at Rovers clubs. Not many players' names have been bandied about. The only one that I've sort of seen is Assombalonga, who's been told by Middlesbrough he can go. But the question I'm going to ask you both is that I know it's not what the majority of the fan base wants, but knowing that it's sort of, well, I won't say confirmed, but I'm just going from what we've read that Mowbray is going to stay on. What's the two or three key things that you both think he needs to address over the next 2 to 3 months? So I'll come to you first, Andy, and then come to you afterwards, Ollie.
Just sort of like take a step back. I think if he is going to stay as manager next season, I think it would be, I know it would be a bit unusual, but I think it'd be quite good for the club to come out and say, look, Tony's got our full support. We're backing him over the summer, and he's going to be the manager at the start of the season. That doesn't mean he's going to be the manager all season, but it just means he's going to be the manager at the start of the season, and we'll see how things pan out. In terms of what he needs to do as a manager to get people back on side, I think it's accepted we're going to have a small budget. That might be slightly boosted if Armstrong gets sold. I think this obsession with midfielders needs to be brought to an end, and actually sort of look at areas of the pitch that need strengthening, i.e. the defence. We've got Pickering coming in, and then we've probably got Bell as a backup left back. So that's a position where it could be slightly exposed. We've got Lenihan, who it might be an unpopular opinion, I don't know. I don't actually rate Lenihan, to be honest. I don't actually think he's that good a player. And then you've got either Wharton, Ayala. These records, you get half a season out of him if you're lucky. I played out, probably try and bring back his Howard Bellis. I don't think he's actually done that much wrong. I think he's quietly a very efficient player. And then at right back, you've got Nyambe, hopefully who stays, and ranking Costello. Again, his injury record would sort of suggest you're not going to get a full season out of him. So the defence is an area, I know it's the old line, isn't it? Defenders are coming type of thing. That's the one area he needs to address in terms of strengthening him. The midfield for me needs thinning out, which I think it will this season anyway, with sort of contracts running down. And then the question is whether Armstrong stays or goes. If he stays, do we sign a replacement? Do we use that money to strengthen the defence and make do with what we've got up front? But also, I don't know whether it's been this season. I don't really know how other teams have handled it, but 4 or 5 minutes of the game, for me, it either smacks of he doesn't know his best 11, he's trying to keep everybody happy, or he's changing his team to suit the opposition, which is never a good sign in terms of having confidence in your own players. So for me, he just needs to get back to doing what he was doing in terms of settled team selection, decent squad. But it's like anything, if the results are sort of relatively consistent and we're doing well-ish. I mean, at the start of the season, nobody was saying anything about the manager situation because we were winning. Yeah, we were losing the odd game, but we were doing well. The biggest thing to quiet it all down would be to win games, but you can't do that over the summer. So he just needs to make the right decisions in terms of how he wants to develop the squad, but not keep going on about possession-based football. Every team wants to play possession-based football. That's how, if you're in possession of the ball, you can't concede. So he needs to stop this. But then he also needs to stop this huffing and puffing. I don't care if we finish 7th or 19th. I'm only here to develop the team. Now, to me, that smacks of I'm here to develop players to sell them on. No, we're here to develop. We're not here to develop a club to get promoted or to make a shot at promotion. So he needs to. Sometimes he can be too honest in his post-match. Sort of like when he comes out with things like "we huffed and we puffed." That's not what you want to be hearing from a professional football manager. You want to be hearing the things that we were playing phases of the game. We were just all the things that you want to hear from a manager, but not sort of like the things you would hear from a Sunday League manager in terms of we huff and we're puffing. I don't care really where we finish in the table. Things like that do not help, especially when things aren't going well. If we were, say, 7th or 8th, and he was trying to take the pressure off the players and trying to keep things cool by saying, I don't really mind where we've finished, then it takes the pressure off the players and you'd like to think they can kick on and push into the playoffs. But when you're sort of like on the verge of a relegation scrap, you've got fans who are very unhappy and you've got a manager saying, not bothered where we finish, doesn't sort of bode well for his relationship between the fans and the manager. I mean, it'll be very interesting to see, say, for instance, first game of next season, and we're playing a team that's come up and we're 1-0 down at half time, and you've got a relatively full crowd in again. It's going to be interesting to see the reaction of fans and how he handles that in terms of, because he's always said, I don't want to be a burden on the club. Well, that's questionable whether he is or not. But then on the flip side of that, he'll say, it's for the owners to tell me if it's time to go. However, if there's nobody able to telling the owners that it's time for him to go, then you're going to get the status quo, which is what I think you're going to get this season, in terms of he's going to see out the season. Yeah, we had a disappointing season, and we'll go again next season, because he's trying to build something at the club, whatever that is. So to answer the question in a sort of like a roundabout kind of way, I don't know there's a lot you can do over the summer to sort of get fans back on side. I think it's going to be more when the season starts again. We have to get off to a strong start in terms of points on the board, consistency in team selection, and sort of consistency in performance as well, really, I think.
Great, thanks, Andy. Some real pertinent points. And just before I come to you, I'm just going to jump into a few of the comments which echo what Andy said, and I'm just going to add my opinion to a couple as well. So Leap Year Man mentioned about our defence teams too easy to score against. Teams only need a couple of chances. Could even argue that we saw that today in Huddersfield, creating very little. Michael has raised about morale low in the fan base, and I think that is really fair to say. And again, what Andy said, you can probably only turn that around by winning. And then moving on from that, which Bradley says, and it was a point that I was going to be raised, was about the season tickets. It's really interesting to see what sort of volume of sales we get, and you just can't see it getting back at the moment to the levels it was before lockdown. And then I just want to jump onto Michael's other comment, because this is related to something that I picked up and was raised by Andy Watson as well, who writes for Rovers chats, that maybe today's games, the real reason why we'd see teams coming to Ewood Park and parking the bus, to coin a phrase, because they know we can exploit it. So it's going to be no surprise next season if we still see that sort of tactic employed by teams. So we do need to rethink plan A, and whether that's recruitment over the summer, bringing in some real sort of, what's the phrase that Andy used, some lock breakers, people that can really sort of turn the game in our way. And Leap Year, echoing what I said about I'm not sure how many fans are going to buy a ticket. And then the last comment from Chris, first 5 games will set the tone. So yeah. Right, so Ollie, do you want to add your stance to that as the final comment of the stream today?
Yeah, I pretty much completely agree with everything Andy said. So I won't kind of go over the same ground. Just probably touching on what Michael Pearson said, that nothing much. If he's here next season, fine. Nothing we say on this stream it changes that. So be it. But yeah, the only way he'll get fans on side is with the results on the pitch. The big things for me will be we've seen 3 seasons in the Championship with the same frailties and kind of Achilles heels kind of haunt us at different stages in the season, and kind of worryingly more this season than the previous 2. And that's what, yes, if the results come, it means those frailties are going away. But yeah, we need the defensive structure of the sides is always a bit of a worry. Our ability to just give sides goals, whether, you know, is it about leadership? Is it about a bit of grit and steel on the pitch? Is it kind of tactical, adjusting the balance around some tactical discipline, that this sort of 4-3-3, kind of playing through the lines, playing out from the back, you know, very forward thinking as a side when things are going well, but you are inherently leaving yourself with a single midfielder screening the back four, and a back four that's prone to shooting itself in the foot quite often. Those, you know, you just cannot give sides those the type of goal. If you looked at a reel of the goals we've let in this season, it's, and sort of said, right, how many would we cut out from our own, you know, a bit of kind of tactical discipline and structure, it's going to be a big number. And it's like his demeanor on the, you know, his demeanor on the touchline that shouldn't be a talking point, but it's become a talking point. But today, there was just a little moment where we got a throw in because he was a lot more animated today. Whether that's because things were going well, I don't know. And he screamed. It wasn't actually our throw in from what I saw, but we got it because he shouted first and loudest. And we've talked about this in a lot this season, that if you're sat down crossed-armed grumbling for 90 minutes and the opposition touchline is screaming and bellowing for every throw-in, corner, offside, free kick, as are all of their players, it creates a pattern. And that little moment today where you think, well, that's what you need. If you need to be fighting on the sidelines and the team need to be fighting on the pitch, because if you're going to tip those fine margins our way, that's, you know, that's what needs to happen. And it's something about his energy at times. For it's no good sat there for the whole game and we're 1-0 down and then you make 4 subs at once and hope something happens. We can't sit there next season and just watch, you know, 3rd game into the season, we're 1-0 down again because we've made a massive mistake and letting in a soft goal, and oh, I'm going to bring on 4 attackers for 4 other attackers and see what happens. It's not enough. Like, there's something about the plan A, plan B, the kind of there has to be, as Andy said, there has to be, right, this is my 11. Like, this is the 11 that works. And if players are injured, there are square pegs going into square holes to fill those gaps. And when I'm making changes, it's very clear that that we're working within a system that suits the game we're playing, or the fact that the opposition have done this to nullify something, that it's not just, I'll just throw on players and then say that we huffed and puffed and could have scored, but we didn't. There is more that can happen that hasn't happened this season. And that, if he's going to win back the fans, it's going to be that, because he will, if fans are in the stadium like next August and onwards, and it's the same stuff we've seen, like, forget today, if it's the same stuff we've seen in the previous 14 games, it's not going to be an easy ride, because it'll last. It's going to last. Well, A, there's going to hardly be anyone in the stadium, and B, it's not going to be very nice. So it won't last very long. But, you know, that Sheffield Wednesday game on Tuesday, like, the structure of the side and what they were trying to do, just non-existent. And that's the biggest thing for me this season is, I think I thought all season we've got a pretty good squad of players that's underachieved. Clearly, they've underachieved given who we've got in our squad, and he just needs to demonstrate that he can maximise. Even if we lose Armstrong, there's still a good squad of players. It's about kind of maximising what we've got and seeing some sort of. We know broadly the system he likes to play when it's going well, but it's the structure and discipline when we're having a difficult day, or the opposition have nullified X, Y, Z, and how he as the manager affects the game, and what he's making the players do, and how they've kind of prepared for the match. And there's just been a lot of weak chinks all season that seem to be around. Kind of, we sort of wither within a game and lose 1-0 without doing anything really. And you just think there's no way that can carry on next season. And that's probably everything Andy said was spot on. But for me, that last bit is just what is actually happening in that in-game management and that structure of the side. And what do we do if Armstrong is there next season and teams go, oh yeah, we know, oh, they'll do that, Brereton's on the left, we'll just snuff that out again like we did last season. What does he do above and beyond? How do we unlock that? Just like as you were saying that Andy Watson was saying in our private chat, that how do you unlock those games that we've struggled to this season? And if he starts to answer a lot of those questions, then great, like we're brilliant. But that should have happened this season for me. So which is why a lot of us are where we are with him. But yeah, that's probably how I'd leave it, I think.
Thanks, Ollie. Appreciate that. Yeah, some real interesting times ahead of us. And like you say, that in-game management is going to be crucial next year, especially if people continue to deploy sort of tactics formations against us that they have done. Okay, so we're going to call that it there. So thanks very much for Andy and Ollie for tonight. I'm going to let you fans all get off, enjoy your evening, enjoy the sun, grab a beer, enjoy the 5 goals we scored today. Equally, as the evening goes on, have the chance around just before 9:30 to reminisce that time 3 years ago when Mulgrew got the winning goal at Doncaster to get us promoted. I'll certainly be toasting a beer, maybe 2 to him at that time. So thanks everyone for your coming along, comments, etc. As always, it's really appreciated. So we're just going to play out with our sponsor's message. So thanks very much, everyone.
The Rovers Chat YouTube channel is proudly sponsored by 𝒐𝒗𝒆𝒔 They've got retro football from every era with mugs, phone cases and much more. They also have plenty of Rovers goods, including apparel with the famous 94-95 season and this season's kit. Check them out using the link in the description below.